What if your entire street, your house, your car, your neighbors, your dog, got yanked 66 million years into the past and dropped in the middle of a swamp crawling with dinosaurs? That's the premise behind The End of Oak Street, the new Warner Brothers sci-fi survival thriller from director David Robert Mitchell. The filmmaker behind it follows. It stars Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor as a suburban married couple fighting to keep their family alive after their quiet cul-de-sac gets swallowed by the Mesozoic era. In this video, I'm breaking down everything you need to know, the full plot from start to finish, the cast, how it was made, what it cost, how it performed at the box office, and what critics are actually saying. The movie opens on a warm summer evening in the early 1980s on a picture-perfect street called Oak Street, where the neighbors are gathered for a block party. It's the kind of idyllic, lived-in suburban community you'd expect from a Spielberg movie. Kids on bikes, parents grilling in the driveway, the whole nostalgic package. At the center of it is the Platt family. Denise, played by Anne Hathaway, and her husband Greg, played by Ewan McGregor, are going through a rocky patch in their marriage, and their two teenage kids, Audrey and Brian, are dealing with their own coming-of-age drama in the background. It's ordinary domestic tension. Nothing supernatural yet. Then strange things start happening. Flashes of light in the night sky. Bizarre noises. Things showing up in backyards that shouldn't exist. Plants that went extinct millions of years ago. And even, memorably, a pile of dinosaur dung. It's an eerie, slow burn buildup before the movie reveals its hand. And then it happens. A cosmic anomaly rips the entire street away from the present day and drops it into prehistoric Earth. 1 second, the Platts and their neighbors are living an ordinary evening. The next, they're surrounded by primeval jungle, and there are apex predators roaming just beyond their fences. What makes The End of Oak Street stand out from a typical creature feature is that it actually roots its premise in real theoretical physics rather than hand-waving it away. The film leans on the concept of traversable wormholes, the idea that space and time could, in theory, be folded so that two wildly different points become connected, an idea popularized by astronomer Carl Sagan and later explored by physicist Kip Thorne, whose work also influenced Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. The film's version of this event isn't a single clean jump either. Different dinosaur species from different eras end up mixed together on Oak Street, hinting that this rupture in time didn't pull from just one moment in prehistory. It tore open several points across millions of years at once and dumped all of it onto one unlucky suburban block. That detail matters, because it explains why the neighborhood isn't just facing one type of dinosaur, but a whole cross-section of prehistoric life, all thrown together in a setting that was never built to survive any of them. Once the street is stranded, the movie shifts into full survival thriller territory. The Platts, along with their neighbors, have to figure out how to stay alive in a world with no rules, no phones, no backup. Just houses that were built for suburbia now serving as flimsy barricades against creatures that can tear through drywall. Along the way, the family takes in Jeanette, a teenage girl who's suddenly orphaned during the chaos, and she becomes an important part of the group as they push toward survival. The film doesn't spare its characters. In one of its most brutal sequences, Greg is cornered and mortally wounded by a Tyrannosaurus Rex while trying to save Denise, a moment that reframes the entire back half of the film, because from that point on, it's Denise who has to hold what's left of the family together and find a way out. That way out comes in the form of a wormhole, the same kind of rupture that caused all of this, which appears intermittently near one of the houses. But it's not a simple doorway. It flickers in and out of existence in short bursts, meaning anyone hoping to escape back to the present has to time their jump perfectly, with dinosaurs closing in the whole time. The back half of the movie becomes a race against the clock and against predators simultaneously, as Denise leads her children and Jeanette through a house under siege, fighting off attacks from a giant snake, aerial assaults from pterosaurs, and more dinosaurs, all while trying to reach that flickering portal on the roof. Jeanette makes her jump first and gets through safely. Brian mistimes his own attempt and injures his leg in the process, which forces the group to regroup and make another attempt together rather than risk losing anyone else. Eventually, the survivors make it through and land safely on the outskirts of where Oak Street used to be, pulled out just before the wormhole seals the neighborhood into the past for good. Here's where the film gets more emotionally layered. Even after escaping, Denise chooses to go back through briefly, hoping to find her parents, who were caught up in the earlier chaos. Meanwhile, in a clever bit of time travel logic, Denise uses a payphone to call in a pizza order, a small action that ends up saving an earlier version of Greg from ever being swept away in the first place, essentially rewriting part of what happened to him. The film then jumps forward 2 years. By this point, the government has stepped in to deal with the dinosaurs that slipped through into the present day, and the surviving Platts and several of their rescued neighbors have settled back into something resembling normal life. Denise even goes on to write a book about the whole ordeal, titled, fittingly, The End of Oak Street, and Audrey ends up attending Cornell to study under Carl Sagan himself, a nod back to the wormhole science that drove the plot. But the final scene plants a quiet, unsettling detail for anyone paying close attention. A photograph appears showing a version of Greg, implying the original Greg who died in the Mesozoic, smiling at a neighborhood barbecue, raising uncomfortable questions about duplicates, timelines, and which version of events the family is actually living in now. It's a small, blink-and-you'll-miss-it beat, but it's enough to suggest that the happy ending isn't quite as clean as it first appears. Anne Hathaway leads the film as Denise Platt, the emotional center of the story who evolves from a woman in a strained marriage into the family's fiercest protector. Ewan McGregor plays her husband Greg. Maisie Stella plays their daughter Audrey, and Christian Convery plays their son Brian. Jordan Alexa Davis rounds out the core group as Jeanette, the orphan teen the Platts take in during the chaos. It's worth noting that Oscar Isaac was originally attached to McGregor's role before dropping out during development. The End of Oak Street is written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, making his first feature since 2018, and his first major studio production after building a cult following with the horror film It Follows. The project comes from J.J. Abrams' production company Bad Robot, alongside Hannah Minghella and Jackson Pictures, with a reported production budget north of $80 million. Mitchell has talked about wanting to capture the spirit of 1970s and 80s character-driven filmmaking, the kind of movie where you actually care about the family before the chaos kicks in, rather than jumping straight into spectacle. That's part of why the film spends real time establishing the Platts' marital tension before the wormhole ever opens. The production filmed primarily around Atlanta, Georgia, and the film reunites Mitchell with cinematographer Michael Joulakis, who shot It Follows with him. The score comes from veteran composer Michael Giacchino, known for his work across the Pixar, Star Trek, and Jurassic World franchises, a fitting resume for a movie all about prehistoric predators loose in the modern world. The End of Oak Street opened in North American theaters on August 14, 2026, in roughly 3,400 locations, going up against the third weekend of Spider-Man Brand New Day and the same weekend release of Paw Patrol: The Dino Movie. It landed an opening weekend in the range of $20 to $21 million domestically, with an additional $26 million overseas, bringing its global opening to around $47 million. Given the film's $80 million plus budget, that's considered a soft debut. Several trade outlets pointed out it ranks among Anne Hathaway's weaker wide-release openings in recent years. Whether the film can turn a real profit will likely depend on how well it holds up in the weeks following release, since strong reviews and positive word of mouth can sometimes help a movie like this build momentum over time, rather than front-load all its earnings on opening weekend. Here's the interesting twist in the story off-screen. Despite the shaky box office, critics have actually responded well. The film currently sits at 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it earned a B grade from opening weekend CinemaScore audiences. Solid, if not spectacular, numbers. Reviewers have generally praised the film's throwback charm, describing it as a big, unapologetically fun ride that leans into pure entertainment rather than trying to be prestige cinema. Several critics singled out Hathaway's performance as the emotional anchor that keeps the more absurd elements of the film, like actual dinosaurs rampaging through cul-de-sacs, grounded in something that feels genuinely human. There's also been plenty of discussion about how rare it is these days to see a big-budget, original, non-franchise blockbuster released in the middle of the summer. Even with its underwhelming opening, a lot of the conversation around The End of Oak Street has framed it as a refreshing swing at original filmmaking in an industry dominated by sequels and existing IP. So that's the full story on The End of Oak Street, a wormhole disaster movie wrapped around a family drama with dinosaurs thrown in for good measure. Great reviews, a shaky opening weekend, and an ending that leaves just enough mystery to keep people talking. If you've already seen it, let me know in the comments what you think that final photograph really means. And if this breakdown helped, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more movie explainers just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.